4 now on Kiwi. Time to stare into the night sky with Dylan Storey. Thanks very much to the Auckland Stardome Observatory. Dylan's back. He had a break last week. G'day there, Dylan.
G'day. I was in Aussie last week, so couldn't make it to Skype.
And cold at your place this morning, wearing a nice big jacket. Or have you actually been out watching the stars? You just come back in?
No way, man. It's just it's cold in my house.
But it's
We're
cold.
One of these
it's cold.
Uninsulated Waitakere houses.
Yeah, right. It's cold in your house, but it's colder out in space. Dylan Storey.
It is colder out in space. Nice segue.
Yeah. In fact, it's cold on Mars. Well, it can be cold and hot, I suppose. There's extremes.
It's cold on Mars.
Yeah.
It's mainly it can't really be hot on Mars.
Oh, it can't?
It's even around the equator. In summer, the sort of it gets almost up to zero, maybe above zero at certain points.
Yeah. Didn't it? What was the history of Mars? Didn't it burn up though? Wasn't it possible that there could have been, vegetation and whatnot there, but the atmosphere became uninhabitable?
Yeah, it wouldn't have burnt up as such. It is possible that in Mars's history it was a lot warmer, and therefore it could have supported life, biological, animal even, maybe. But it probably didn't get hot. But what happened is it just lost its atmosphere. So it loses its air pressure. So liquids boil off a lot colder. At the pressure we have on Earth, water obviously boils at 100 degrees. But if you go up high in the mountains, it boils at a lot lower temperature. So that's the main cause of planets losing their liquids.
Interesting. So, so that leads us on to the discovery in the past couple of weeks that there was possibly flowing water on Mars.
Yes, the NASA, some of the NASA orbiting craft have taken pictures of certain valleys, certain slopes, where there seem to be these finger-like structures appear over Mars's summer season. So from Mars's late spring through to Mars's early autumn, these sort of dark tendril-like things appear going down the slope, and then they disappear again in the winter. So there's actually a GIF on the internet of it. If you look, and it shows pictures taken at different seasons where you can see them appear and slowly disappear. So while no one knows for certain what these things are, the best hypothesis, best explanation is that it's probably salty water or brine, which is actually appearing caused by ice melt at those temperatures. So water, it probably still is below 0 degrees, and normal water would be frozen. But this is brine or salty water, which has a lower freezing temperature.
Right.
On Earth, it's used as refrigerants for lots of things because you get it to cool things at negative temperatures.
Yep.
So on Mars, it may actually be forming tiny rivers here, going down the slopes.
Now, is that helpful for the search for life in the past because the water acted as an incubator?
Very helpful, yeah. It's it's the first time we've seen any evidence of present liquid water on Mars. Now, I guess the important thing about liquid water is when we compare it to Earth, we know that everywhere on Earth that we have water in its liquid form, we find life of some sort. Even, I believe, in the polar regions where that liquid only exists for part of the year, then animals hibernate for the rest of the year. So the indication that there could be liquid water on Mars now is quite intriguing. It doesn't necessarily mean that there is life there, but it certainly raises the potential for the possibility of past life. It's also quite significant for human habitability. If we ever do make it over there in the future, then astronauts, colonies or whatever have got a potential source of liquid water there.
Yeah. We could bounce off that asteroid that we were talking about last time, right? Perhaps as a staging ground.
The Trojan asteroid, definitely. Perhaps.
Could be.
I'm not sure how the orbital mechanics would work. Whether it would work to go into a linear orbit with Earth before going off to Mars.
Yeah. Remind us again on what's the possible timeline for heading to Mars.
Nobody knows because we're basically still relying on technology that hasn't actually been invented yet.
Yeah.
So
it's all wishful thinking.
And of course it's a wishful thinking. I mean, I feel pretty sure that the human race could do it if we put our collective efforts towards it. But the thing holding it up is money problems and political turmoil and all this NASA's budget being slashed and everything. You know, during the Cold War, when people needed to get to the moon, and the right sort of, it was a huge task. It was such a leap ahead in technology. But when one nation or collective scientists of the world put their minds to it, it was achieved. And I'm pretty sure the same thing could happen with Mars, even though there are the next level of challenges to get there. Optimistically, I would hope for humans to get there in the next 30 years. Yeah.
Still seems like a long, long way off, but it's interesting. Okay, waters on Mars. Dylan Storey, what's happening at the Auckland Stardome? What can you see at the moment?
Saturn is still in prime position for viewing, so if you go out for telescope sessions, you can still see Saturn quite well in the evening sky. Over the next month or two, it will be sort of getting lower, so harder to see. It's quite lucky for public telescope viewing sessions that the two best planets to view through telescopes are actually at opposite sides of the sky, so that means that as Saturn sets and becomes no longer viewable, that's about the time that Jupiter starts to come into view on the other horizon. So later in the year, in the next few months, Jupiter will be viewable, but Saturn's there in the sky, and of course a whole lot of other telescope objects. And the general sort of learning about the night sky that takes place at the Stardome during the 8 o'clock show.
Okay, excellent. I'm just looking at my Google Sky Map now, and Saturn right now is dropped below the horizon, and there's no way you can see Mercury, Venus, because they are right where the sun is.
Yeah, because they're nearer to the sun, so they spend a lot of time being obscured by the sun. It's only when they're at the sides of their orbit that we can see them. But because they move around fairly fast, that happens fairly quickly, so they might be disappeared now. But Mercury can sort of come and go from the sky in a matter of weeks or even days.
Yeah. Yeah, and
same with Venus.
And as you say, Jupiter is fairly high above the horizon, so before sunrise, you should be able to get a good gander at it. There you go.
Yeah, definitely. I from memory, it'd be rising about 1 in the morning now, Jupiter.
Yeah.
And so that'll be just as Saturn is setting, or Saturn will have already set by then. But in the evening sky, Saturn will be to the northwest, the sort of brightest thing in the sky to the northwest.
Excellent. Well, Dylan, thanks very much for your time this morning. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Wammo.